So hello, everyone. For those of you or any of you who are streaming this or who are here on Zoom, welcome to Jewish Wisdom for Coping with a Pandemic. It is our weekly Mussar gathering where we have formed a pretty nice little community over the last year and a half or so since we've started meeting. And for some, it's their first meeting, and for others, it is their who knows how many, 30, 40, 50th, I'm not sure. But whatever the case, I'm so glad you're here. As is our custom, we will begin with a short meditation to create a bit of a sacred space to remind us that we're here together on a journey. We're not here to give each other advice. We're here to just travel as a bunch of souls flying through the universe. So please close your eyes and get comfortable in your seat. And take in a deep breath through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. If thoughts should come into your head, just observe them and watch them go, like watching a car move past on the road. Now is not the time for solving problems. Right now, all you need to do is inhale through the nose and hold. And exhale through the mouth and hold. And on your next inhale, say to yourself, Shema. And on the exhale, listen. Shema, listen. In Shema, we're listening deeply, without judgment, without offering advice. In Shema, we are listening with an open heart. Shema, listen. And when you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, hello, Phyllis and Joanne, who joined us during the meditation. So nice to see you. Let's check in and see where we are in our cycle. Today we are doing the second of our 2 weeks on silence and mindful speech. The following 2 weeks we'll be doing trust, and then there'll be no meeting on July 22nd. I will be on vacation again, and then we'll be back for another month with the 2 weeks on faith and on order. So last time when we met, there was a suggested practice to maybe take a time of day and just notice your use of speech. We talked about mindful speech, being aware of what we said, being maybe a little bit aware when we become triggered. So I'm curious, does anyone have anything they would like to share about maybe their experience with speech? Oh, hi, Stephanie, welcome back. Nice to see you. So who would like to begin? Frank.
We have a neighbor upstairs, and we've been having high tea every once in a while. So we meet on the landing on the second floor, and today I had a chance to talk to our foster son's brother, who's a police officer here in Louisville.
Mm.
And the reason is he's in prison, and he did some things, that put him there.
Mm.
But we care for him, and we haven't been in touch. So I was while having high tea, I decided not to mention what it was about, because I think that it's not necessarily useful.
Mm.
So the idea is to I'm more aware about restricting myself if it's not necessary to say certain information.
Yeah. Thank you, Frank. Thank you. We listen with an open heart. Yes, Wendy.
Mussar trait's been giving me a hard time. I'm saying we because my husband.
Having a little hard time hearing you. I don't know if you can move a little closer to the mic.
Sorry. Yeah. Well, it might be. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, good. Well, there are things that have been being said to me that have jerked my chain or made me angry or whatever. And I've been wanting to actually respond. And before I would not respond. Before I would just keep it inside and go about my business. And who knows who ended up getting whatever it was I was angry about. But I actually was looking at myself in the mirror and I just began to smile. And then I felt like I could say something good and helpful and wise and not just like light into the person or just be upset. And I thought, yeah, that's going to be for me. Now I have a technique. And I thought it was just such a blessing to have learned a technique for myself, because right now we are going through some real hard times with a family member. And the thing is usually when somebody would be mean to me and say something mean, and I didn't really have a reason to stick around, then I just wouldn't see that person anymore. Check them off the list. But when it's this close as a family member, that's not going to work. So you do have to kind of grow up and be able to do something to help yourself. And I just think if you don't, my whole thing is if I can't say something that makes somebody else's life better, then I shouldn't really be saying it. So that's why I've been keeping things in. Now I know I can say something. I just have to smile first, possibly look at myself smiling, and then some things seem like they're lighter and I can see humor even in it and deal with it in a more positive way. So just technique for me, that's all. That's what I learned.
Well, thank you, Wendy, and thank you for sharing that. We're all in our own journey, and we learn these techniques, and we the goal is to share this wisdom with one another and then find out how it applies in our own life, because we're the only ones who can judge sort of what is most appropriate for us and how it's most appropriate for us to actualize this. And I'm so glad to hear that you found a technique that is working for you. That is great. Yes, Carol.
Well, I debated sharing this because I don't know if it quite fits, but I've become very aware of how grateful I am when I receive compassionate speech. People show caring to me. And not only that, but how important it is for me to say thank you. I acknowledge you. I'm grateful for the care you're showing me. And I've had this both coming, we had a meeting of my choir in person. And everybody was super sensitive to me about, because I'm still wearing a mask. They're not. But I'm standing away from people. And they're all next to each other because they're comfortable with that, and I'm not. And everybody was so understanding. And I've encountered this also with my riding instructors. Now that I'm back with the horses, the same kind of wonderful care. First of all, the one that does the Western clubs, informed me without any prompting, we're all vaccinated in Western club, you can come back. So come on back. And then last night, the instructor I ride with on Wednesday night, when I put down my choice of horse, she says, basically cautioned me, said, are you sure? I'm not sure this is the safest horse for you. And so I changed and I listened to her and I told her how important that was to me, because I have to tell people, I want to put that positive acknowledgement into the world, because I don't think people acknowledge that kind of stuff enough. And when you acknowledge, you reinforce. That's saying, yes, it's okay to tell me these things. I trust your judgment. And please, you are showing so much caring. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. That's such a wonderful example of mindful speech and realizing, realizing an opportunity where you could bring more good into the world. If you don't mind me asking, just for a brief follow-up answer, just what was the impact on you of saying thank you and acknowledging? Well,
kind of like it is right now. I got a little bit teary-eyed and it felt really good. I felt like I made this connection. This instructor, her name's Emma. Emma's a little bit remote. She's very professional and she's she's been doing this for decades. She's
just briefly.
Yeah. So I felt closer to her and I felt, I don't know, it's a really warm sensation, I guess, really heart sensation.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And when we act in the world, when we do something in Mussar, what Alan Moranis would say is it leaves a small trace in our soul. It makes a change in our soul. Or maybe it is, if you're more neurobiology centric, you might say that we're causing certain patterns to wire themselves in the brain. But taking action like this changes who we are. And that is, the biggest, yes, we want to have a positive impact in the world, but when we do things like that, it changes us. It makes it that much easier for us to behave in a positive way in the future. As it says in the Talmud, a mitzvah leads to another mitzvah. I saw some other hands, Nancy and then Joanne.
Yeah, I see myself as being a very honest person and sometimes maybe too forthright. But I try to stand up for myself and what I believe. I try to put somebody else in my footsteps. So, when I talk to them, I try to do it like, how would I feel if someone were to confront me, right? So I was out last Friday and I know it was my decision to be in this restaurant, but I had these two gentlemen next to me without a mask and I had mine on, start inching closer and closer. And I finally looked over at them and they said, "Oh, are we bothering you?" And I said, "Would you please mind just stepping back a little further?" I could have been nasty, but I thought I did it as kindly as I could. And they said, "Oh, we're so sorry," So I think they recognize the situation. But what I'm finding is I have a problem with my condo right now, that there was a major pipe leak and it's affecting my unit as well. And now I want to sell it and get my kids out of it. So I'm trying to speak up in a generous, compassionate way, like I hope the building is structurally safe. I don't want to put it out there in the universe about Florida, but this is going to be a pancake situation if something happens. And they're like, well, they just throw it up in their hands. But again, I have to come back, put it out gently, say thank you for doing all you're doing to come back and fix the problem. They're responsible for the damage done at my place. But it's how we respond and how we give. If you ask me how do I feel about it, I don't think they're really being transparent enough. So she said, go to the meeting, go to the board meeting and speak up. I'm like, so these kind of situations and being mindful of how we say things does impact everything that happens.
Yeah. Thank you, Nancy. And, taking that first step, and once you get into that mindful space, that's almost the whole game. It's like, it is really the whole game. That's 90% of the work right there, is getting out of the reactive space and into the mindful space. So thank you. Let's see, Joanne.
So this week, well, I'm in charge of this honey drive that we're doing for sisterhood, and so people who want to participate, send us lists of addresses and and what they want their. Anyway, it's been very successful. And I decided that I was going to send a honey jar to a lot of people in my congregation that I like, and or who have, like when I had cancer, which was 10 years ago, were especially helpful to me. And so they're not going to know about this until September, but but just doing that, making this list. So I wound up making a very long list because I also had a friend in Seattle, and I mean, there's even more people I could send this to, but it gets too much. But so that's one thing. The other thing is a young woman who's a member of our congregation um, decided just on her own to initiate a program, an event, and so one of the other people in sisterhood was like emailing me, "What is this?" and what is this money for? And so I started texting back and forth with this woman saying, we would have liked you to go through us, because she spoke to the rabbi. He said it was okay, but like some of the funds from this event should go to the synagogue because the guy's he's using our premises. And so I was trying to choose my words very carefully, and in the end I said, and I appreciate your initiative and enthusiasm, and I want to participate because I do. Other people maybe not so much, but the thing is, we need these people like her to join sisterhood, but they're not doing it. So we're going to have further discussion about this, and also I think with the younger women, we're going to have a meeting, try to have a meeting at a time they can make it, because this has to be hashed out, because otherwise it's like just you can't just ask the rabbi permission to use the shul. It's not a good process. So there has to be a process. That's it.
Thank you, Joanne. And it sounds like sort of carefully choosing your words was a big part of it. So
it was a big
appreciate you sharing that. Aim.
Hi, blessings to you all. The one thing that I've noticed lately that I've come across within myself is when we give praise and appreciation, like I have the will to say, I really appreciate your kindness. Or somebody will say to you, you're a great artist, or you're a great man, or you're, something, I don't know, something. I think that it is so important for us to say thank you or you're welcome. I think that is very mindful. So we don't say, oh, no problem, or deflect the appreciation that somebody gives us. And I think one of the most mindful things that a lot of people don't do is say, I hear what you're saying, I accept it within myself, and thank you. And instead of saying, oh, posh, whatever, it's very important. So that's all. Just saying you're welcome if somebody says thank you, or something like that. I think that we need to have that mindful communication link by saying you're welcome. And
yeah, thank you, Aim. It reminds me of my father-in-law, where probably 20 years ago, in one of our earlier on visits to him, he said at one point, and my mother used to say, the proper answer for thank you is you're welcome. And that really stayed with me. Yeah, well, I had a nice vacation last week, but I was visiting family, and there were a couple of times, as sometimes happens in family situations, and when things are stressful and people have some health challenges, there were some heated moments, and I really did work really hard to kind of watch what I said and use my I language, like, I'm starting to feel a little criticized here. And so, it's stressful when it's going on, but I also know that the way I handled it sort of could easily have thrown gas on the fire, and it could have been, become a major thing, and it was sort of stayed in the realm of a minor thing. So I feel fortunate that we were on this soul trade to kind of help me keep in that mind space. All right, well, this week we are going to transition to from mindful speech into talking about LaShon HaRa, which is which is evil speech. And I'm gonna just quickly move through this. This slide, David Jaffe points out that, writing a really aggressive or nasty email is called flaming someone, because that is very destructive. It can be very destructive to the relationships and communities. And he points out that the LaShon HaRa, which he calls thoughtless, harmful speech, it's like the three major sins: idol worship, murder, and incest. And so as we kind of delve into this a little bit deeper, we should keep that in mind. Why is it that this was considered such a grievous thing? Why is this as bad as murder? Why is this as bad as idol worship? So let's dive in. May I have a volunteer to read this bullet?
Sure, I'll read. LaShon HaRa kills three people: the speaker, the listener, and the subject of the harmful speech. The listener suffers more than the speaker. Maimonides' laws of character development. Why would the listener suffer more than the speaker?
That is a great question, Carol. Why would the listener suffer more than the speaker? Oops. Oh, that's the answer, but at least an answer. But I'd like to hear your answers or your thoughts before I share what Rabbi David Jaffe thinks. Yeah, Shelley.
I'm going to say it's choice. The listener has a choice to is discerning if whatever I am saying that is hurtful to them or convincing, because I'm trying to bring them to my point of view, and whatever pain and torment I am putting on them, they have that choice in how they're going to respond. Are they going to let it go into their heart and hurt them, or are they going to look at it from a different perspective and say, okay, what is Shelley going through right now that she's using a different tone of voice? It's that discernment choice, right? So, and I think we're used to choosing the easy option, the one that has a million answers, our brain, our ego, and therefore we think we're making it easier. And I think a lot of us too are programmed to think that if we're not going through some type of discomfort, then we're not learning the lesson. But so amazingly to think that we could learn the lesson just by listening and going, thank you for showing me that whatever, visual, and I'm not going to put those shoes on because I don't wish to, hurt my foot. And, but yeah, we have that little fight with our egos. So yeah, that's why I think the listener can have it. They have to go through every emotion, basically. Interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. And let me clarify. Yeah, absolutely. The listener has some choices, and they need to work on it. To clarify, let's think of an example where, let's say, two people are talking and one person starts gossiping about a third party who isn't there. And that's sort of like giving slander or gossiping about someone. That's one of the classic examples of of LaShon HaRa, or evil speech. So in that circumstance, I'm talking to you and I give you some gossip about the other person. And so Maimonides is saying, you're going to suffer more than me, from this slanderous speech. And so why might that be the case? Yeah, Wendy.
Isn't the speaker poisoning the listener? Because if you're just sitting in a room and then your friend comes in and then you're just talking about just normal things, and then all of a sudden the speaker says to you, oh, did you hear about so-and-so? You might not have even thought about so-and-so that day. You might not even, it may not have even been in your mind, but all of a sudden that speaker is controlling what you're thinking about, and it kind of forces you to swallow their poison.
Yeah.
Sometimes that poison might be there to work with that person. That person needs to work with it to try to maybe figure out a way to help the person they're talking about. Mm-hmm. That person actually, like what Shelley was trying to get at, was that maybe that person does need your help, but that's not for you to say. I don't know. That's just not for you to say. I just don't like it when, if you can't be helpful to somebody's life, why do you want to say it?
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah. Thank you. I think that was really well said. Listener, it's like, what? I wasn't even thinking about so and so, and all of a sudden you've dumped this pile of poop in my lap. I know this is what you called it, but you've sort of inflicted your poison on me. So yeah, Joanne, I saw your hand.
Yeah, I think that the listener suffers because this poison's being spewed. And I used to work with a Chafetz Chaim group that we did his every like a daily thing about LaShon HaRa. And you can say I'm sorry I can't talk about someone when they're not present, and or sometimes that I have been very inappropriately just saying that's LaShon HaRa, and upset my friend who's gossiping every single minute. She moved away now, but every single minute she was telling me about this person, how mean they were to her. And another person said, I mentioned it to somebody else, said, that woman hasn't said a mean word to anybody. And I thought about it and I said, yeah, that's true. She's not the friendliest person, but she's not, she doesn't go around gossiping about other people. Right. And nobody should be gossiping about her. So it's hard, but you have to try to you can walk. I think they say walk away if necessary.
Yeah, so maybe walk away. Thank you. We haven't heard from Phyllis yet. I see your hand.
I think all of this has a very different meaning. I remember a workshop that I did, probably a Jungian workshop, Psyche in the Digital Age. When someone just writes everything down in an email and then pushes the send button, it's not a face-to-face meeting. It's just it has a sort of a half-life of 1,000,000 years or something. It's just really, it's something that's really very impactful. And I don't know if anybody's listening, but it certainly does have a big impact on the person that receives this.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very much, I would say, included under the kind of umbrella of speech, because it is a communication, and the same principles apply. Yeah, Carol.
Also, the listener is receiving something that's revealed about the speaker. That's very negative when someone says unkind things about someone else. If you do that, you're revealing something about yourself.
Right.
Which maybe that listener might not think the same about you if you're the speaker.
Yeah.
Afterwards.
It is sometimes unkind, and I'll say there are other types of speech as well. And yeah, if you're saying something unkind about someone else, that reflects poorly on you. But we had a situation in my school where there was this rumor that two people had an affair. And I was like, I don't want to know who it is. Because if I hear, then I'm going to, whether it's true or untrue, I'm never going to look at those people the same way again. It's like someone once said that about someone. It's like, well, they left after, they, run out of guys to date. And I was like, whoa, what the heck, and I knew that wasn't the case about that person, but it was, every time I hear that person's name, that phrase comes up. So you can really contaminate somebody, and it really is a poison. Wendy, I saw your hand.
Yes, it reminded me when Phyllis was talking, Yom Kippur, you're going to be saying you're sorry to people, and all of a sudden you're going to have to go up to this person who doesn't even know that you were listening about them. And it could even be like Carol was saying, it could be something that wasn't even true. And how are you going to do that? How are you going to say you're sorry? I'm sorry I listened to this about that affair you supposedly had. I'm just drawing. I mean, that's going to be like really hard for the listener. So the speaker's kind of putting that on the listener. I mean, it's just not a good thing. And then Phyllis was like, if you're saying about the email, oh, that's so true. That is so true, because once you've read it, well, there's nothing you can do about it. And like what Joanne was saying, that's just excellent when you can say, oh, I make it a point, it's my philosophy not to talk to anybody unless you're in the room, or however, you could stop that in the middle of it, but you can't stop an email in the middle of it.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Andy. Linda. So
I don't know if this is exactly the same. I think a person's motives may come into play. For example, if you know something, you've had an interaction with the person and you're trying to understand what happened and why it upset you, and you go to another friend to talk about it. Frank and I had this conversation because he would probably say that's LaShon HaRa. And I would say, well, if you want to psychologically understand your interaction with another person, then, and you're not intending to be mean or to be hurtful, just to understand that maybe that's not LaShon HaRa. What do you all think?
what do people think? Yeah, Aim.
I think you're right. It is sort of like the motivation, but it's still coming out. I hear a lot of gossip where I live. I live in a building and we're all talking to each other. And I used to sit around and with the gossipers and listen to their gossip, and I would stay silent and I would listen. But my way, I think that when somebody inflicts me with anything, it is my choice of reaction or action. So what I do is, they may say, oh, that person, whatever, is crazy and she's screaming or whatever happens, let's just say that. I would stop and say, oh, bless them, I hope they get better. And when I actually make the verbal announcement, when I put that forth, then I see that they are ceasing in their gossip because they tend to think more compassionately. And I think that is a place where the listener should speak in order to not, I don't know what the words are, put it into themselves, okay? To deflect the crap. I know there's the Yiddish word and you keep saying it, or the Hebrew word, and I can't remember it, but instead of absorbing it into myself, I push it away by action, by saying, bless them, I hope they get better, or whatever it is. And I think the listener, if they are just silent and listening, they could ingest what the speaker is saying. But by saying that, then they, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Aim. And you remind me of something that my former rabbi, Janet Martyr, taught me, which she learned from Rabbi Joseph Telushkin, which is that when we're gossiping, we lose an opportunity to connect with the person that we're talking to. So instead of like getting to know each other, you're like focused on someone who isn't there. So it's kind of a lost opportunity. And so, you know, your story of kind of deflecting it instead of talking about blessing this other person, it sort of breaks that energy a little bit. And I would say to Linda's question, you know, it's a difficult one because it's weighing two things. There's sort of what you need to kind of process the situation. But I think in general, Judaism tends to focus more on the action and the intention and the consequence, the intention. So if you're still speaking about what someone else did, it is still talking about like them when they're not there. So that's not to say you shouldn't do it if it isn't, you know, if it's something that you need, or if it's with a confident or person you trust, because I don't think it serves us just to sort of hold these things inside. And sometimes we get a real perspective that, oh yeah, so-and-so's mother is going through chemotherapy and they're not telling anybody. And so maybe that can explain it. So it's, you know, I always try to remember there's more than one teaching. You know, LaShon HaRa is an important principle, but it's not the only principle that we need to use. Wendy, and then we're gonna move on.
Well, I just remembered, like, if you think, this is for Linda, if you think you're walking a very, very narrow line, you can think of that picture that Greg brings up about the river divided. So there's the muddy part and the blue part. And then which one of the things that you're just about to talk about is, you know, you have to make that decision. But that I just got that visual, that's all. Thought that was interesting.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So there are other people. There's the speaker, the listener, and the subject of harmful speech. I think we sort of covered Rabbi David Jaffe's answer. So they also talk about the person being spoken of, and there's a story which I'll share with you, which many of you have heard, where a guy is getting rebuked by the rabbi for giving, you know, gossiping about someone else. And he says, well, what can I do? And he says, well, take this pillow and rip it open and scatter all the feathers out of the window. Right. So he does that, and it's like, okay. It's like, well, and now I want you to go and gather all those feathers and put them back in the pillow. And the guy said, well, it's impossible to do that. And it's like, that's right. And once you've uttered speech and once you've said something about someone, even if it's true, if it's damaging to their reputation, there's no way to take that back. So that's the sort of the implication and the responsibility we have when we do talk about a third person. What I think was interesting is this danger to the speaker. That's something we haven't talked about. You know, when I'm gossiping about someone else, I might have a volunteer to read this. Frank, I saw your hand. You probably had a comment. Do you want to read this and then maybe share your comment with us?
That's a good offer. When we harm others through speech, we dull ourselves to spiritual experience. While mocking speech might be an attempt to draw some people close, as often is with young people, in fact, it makes others weary and destroys trust. We literally make it difficult to dwell together as neighbors when we speak LaShon HaRa. At the same time, if God desires closeness between people, we also desensitize ourselves to experiences of God and make it more difficult to receive such experiences.
Yeah, thank you, Frank.
So what I wanted to mention, and it's the same subject, is that earlier we were talking about, before we got into this part of our conversation about how certain kind of speech affirms kind of lives, our lives and our connections. And this one kind of diminishes it. When we affirm our connection, what happens is that it's easier for others and ourselves to be in that view of ourselves in the world. But when we engage in gossip, not only what was mentioned, I think by you, Greg, that, or maybe by somebody else, that when we talk about LaShon HaRa, we are not expanding our relationship with the person we're talking to. What we're doing is we're talking about somebody else. So the question I have is that when we engage in LaShon HaRa, what we're doing as essence is disregarding the fact that by promoting it, we will have LaShon HaRa talked about us. And so we disregard that fact that not only am I allow myself to talk LaShon HaRa, but what that means is that others can talk about me. And to think that that's not gonna happen, that's a pipe dream.
Yeah, thank you, Frank, because it does sort of open ourselves up perhaps to having LaShon HaRa. I remember my first weekend of rabbinical school, there was sort of an outside person that came in and led this, you know, they had various teachers, did various things, and someone came in and did a sound bath, and I had, you know, with these different bowls, and it was kind of this interesting thing, but I'd met them before, and then like in front of the group, they're like, oh, and we have, you know, the Mussar expert, you know, Greg Marcus was here too. And I was like so mortified, and like I hadn't met these people, and like who is just kind of putting me on the spot. I don't like that kind of thing, and it really bothered me. And I was staying with someone who knew this person, and I was like, you know, she said, oh, how was your thing? And I said, it was really good, except somebody did something which really bothered me. And I made a deliberate decision not to say who it was, because, you know, if I had, they would have been like, oh, there goes so-and-so again, because this person doesn't have a filter and it's just kind of does these things. But I just didn't want to go there because I didn't think it was appropriate. And it's, yeah, so that's what I was reminded of. Well, this is a good chance. Okay, we'll have Linda and Eamon. We didn't get to our breakout groups last time, so I want to make sure we have some time for that today. So Linda and Eamon will go speed round here. So Linda.
Do you have, or have you given us a good definition of LaShon HaRa?
I don't think I have. It's considered, I guess the way I would define it would be speech, you know, be harmful speech, you know, speech about someone else, which is damaging to them. And it can be true, it can be untrue, but it would have a negative impact on the person or on their reputation. That's how I think of it. And you had a question or comment?
I just was thinking, you said that somebody said, oh, look, it's the Maven of Mussar. And when you said that made you feel uncomfortable because somebody was talking about you. But if LaShon HaRa is negative, how is that negative? You know what I mean? If we're talking like, oh, that woman is so pretty, we're still talking about someone else, even in a positive way. Oh, Greg is so smart about the Mussar. You know, it's a positive things. Are these things still LaShon HaRa?
Yeah, so positive things can be LaShon HaRa because they can inspire jealousy, for example. It's like, wow, they have so much money. They got this huge TV. They got, you know, all this this stuff, and you might think, and they went out and they bought this really expensive piece of art. Maybe you think, well, why aren't they giving to charity? Because there's so many people in need. So it can inspire that. And for me, the reason why that was sensitive to me is I hadn't met anybody. I wanted to introduce myself to them on my own terms. I didn't want to be perceived as like this expert who knew, all this stuff. I just wanted to come in and, literally I've been together with these people for 2 hours who were my classmates and my colleagues. And I didn't want to be like singled out, and everybody had their talents, and they're an amazing group of people. But just for me personally, it made me very uncomfortable. Other people may have reacted differently. But yeah, is that helpful? Okay, so here's what we're going to do in our partner study. Let's see. Silence number 2. So this is actually a holdover from last time, where we're talking about mindful speech. So we've been, we've been talking about, when you're, instead of gossiping, maybe we can do this. And Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, he encouraged his followers to use words of encouragement to build each other up. And so when you get together with your partner, maybe share something that you just like some encouragement about. And your partner should listen. And then when you're done speaking, they can give you some encouragement without giving advice. It's just like, yeah, just go for that. You can do that. You can get through this. And then, so you should share for maybe 1 to 2 minutes, and the partner should respond in less than a minute. And then after you've each taken a turn, maybe have a discussion. What was it like to do this exercise? So I'm going to put this in the chat. I'll stop the share, and then I will open the breakout rooms. All right, so the rooms are open. We'll have like maybe 5 or 6 minutes. So click join room. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. So I am curious, how was that experience of uplifting one another? Yes, Nancy.
It brought tears to my eyes. Aim and I were together, and I just so appreciated being with her since this was her first time. And she has just a beautiful heart on how she expresses herself. And I told her what I needed encouragement about, and it was about my condo situation and my children, and just her words about, looking after their safety and being mother, having that mother compassion for them. And just the way she expresses herself, it made me feel warm. It made me feel accepted. It made me feel loved. Like, she really was
How wonderful.
listening to what the issue was, or not even really the issue. She just had a way of expressing, and I think that was just beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. Thank you for uplifting AIM in this way too. Other people, how was the experience? Yeah, Carol.
Well, I loved giving encouragement. That was even better than getting it. It was great to get it. It was lovely. I kind of threw Phyllis a curveball because my issue is a little bit difficult, but she was lovely. She was just lovely. But to give her encouragement gave me this really nice, sweet feeling. So sometimes it's better to give, I guess.
Great, thank you, Carol. Stephanie. You're on mute, so if you could unmute, please.
I met with Linda and I'm sorry, I forgot Frank, Linda and Frank. And it was just really nice to be heard. I just felt like, you know, they really listened. They had open hearts. I cried because I've been dealing with a lot of things about this whole topic tonight. And so just to have somebody hear me, and I feel a little bit like I shortchanged them because I probably talked way too much and didn't give them a chance. But you know, they were just lovely, and I miss not being around that enough.
Well, thank you, Stephanie. I'm so glad you felt heard. Anyone else care to share? And who is your spiritual assistant there?
This is Rosa, and she comes to me a lot. She wants to eat, but we're talking. But I'm crying too. I just love the heartfelt language. You know, and we were talking about that, Nancy and and I have been trying so hard to speak of my heart, to find that silence so I can hear what my heart says. And Rosa feels it too.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes. Well, that's beautiful.
What a beautiful group of people. I'm so happy to see you.
Oh, I'm so happy you could be with us today. And, you know, being silent so I can listen to my heart. That sums it up right there. That is the real power. Well, I think we'll use that as our last statement, and we'll close as we began with a short meditation. So once again, please close your eyes. And take in a deep breath through the nose. And again, exhale through the mouth. Just take a moment of quiet. Just following your breath. And see what the heart has to say to us. Now as we get ready to open our eyes, let's open our mouth, let our head tilt back and smile. And send some love and gratitude to those who shared this journey with us for this last hour. When you're ready, you may open your eyes. Well, friends, thank you so much for being here. I will look forward to seeing you again next week. I'm happy that some of you invited friends. Of course, anyone you would like to invite of any age and any religion who you think would enjoy and benefit from this experience and bring something to the community, we may. So, Aim, if you put your email address in the chat, then I can add you to the email list. And I'm a rabbi trainee. I am not yet a rabbi. So I feel like, you know, something like, I always have this vision. I don't wear a kippah normally, but I kind of feel like I want like a big kippah that says trainee on the top or something. That's kind of.
I approve.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, good night. Good night, my friends. We'll see you.
Blessed be.
Early.
Nice.
This was very moving, Greg, today. Very moving. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Thanks. That's when we have sessions like this, it's because we've all opened our hearts and shared from the heart. Okay. I'm just going to copy a couple email addresses here before I close the meeting.
That's 2 S's. So
Got it. Okay, I cut and pasted them and I got yours too.
okay.
So thank you both. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Good night.